At 4:37 a.m. local time, 20 nautical miles south of Sri Lanka, an American attack submarine was already on the hunt. Ahead of it, the Iranian frigate Iris Dina was cutting through the dark at 15 knots, zigzagging, blasting active sonar into the water, and searching for something she could sense, but still could not see. She knew a submarine might be out there. What she did not know, was that one was already behind her. And within minutes, the American captain would receive an order almost unheard of in modern submarine warfare. Sink the ship. Not shadow it. Not track it. Destroy it. But getting that shot was not going to be easy. Dina would not hold still. Every few minutes, she changed course again. No pattern. No warning, just enough to keep the American fire control team from settling into a clean solution. Down in the control room, nobody needed to say much. The tension was already there. Eyes locked on displays. Headsets on. Sonar operators listening for the smallest shift. Fire control technicians building a picture, losing it, then building it again. Because every time Dina turned, the math changed. And every reset burned more time. That was the problem with hunting on passive sonar. You get direction. Not distance. It is like hearing a car somewhere out in the dark. You know where the sound is coming from, but you have no idea whether it is right down the road, or miles away. So, the crew had to work with fragments. Tiny bearing shifts. Small changes over time. Enough to slowly piece together course, speed, and range through target motion analysis. When it worked, the target started to come into focus. When Dina turned, the picture blurred all over again. And the Iranian captain was making them earn every second of it. This was not some careless transit. Dina's crew had trained for anti-submarine warfare. They knew how dangerous an American submarine could be, and they were doing everything they could to make targeting harder. And they had another advantage sitting on the aft deck. An SH-3C King. Not new, but still dangerous. For a submarine, an anti-submarine helicopter changes the whole equation. A ship's sonar has limits. A helicopter can hover, lower a dipping sonar into the water, and start listening in the very layer a submarine is using to stay hidden. That layer was the only thing keeping the American boat invisible. The thermocline. Warm water above. Cooler water below. A natural boundary that bends sound, and helps hide whatever is sitting underneath it. Dina's sonar was tearing through the water, but the layer was still giving the submarine cover. If that helicopter launched, that cover could disappear fast. So now, the Americans were racing the clock. Actually, 3 clocks. The first was the thermocline itself. It was getting weaker, water readings showed the layer was thinning, and the crew knew they would not be able to trust it forever. The second was geography. Dina was running parallel to the Sri Lankan coast. If she turned towards shore and crossed into territorial waters, the chance to fire could vanish. And the third clock was sitting right there, on the flight deck. That Sea King was fueled, armed, and ready. The submarine still had the advantage. But it was slipping. And there was another problem. The launch order had not arrived yet. At their current depth, the submarine could receive only the bare minimum by extremely low-frequency radio. Enough to know a message was waiting, not enough to receive the full execute order. To get that, they had to come up. Which meant risk. Coming shallow meant leaving the safety of the thermocline. It meant exposing a communications mast above the surface. And it meant giving Dina's radar a chance to catch exactly the kind of tiny contact it was supposed to catch. If that mast showed up cleanly, the mission could unravel in seconds. But the crew saw one opening. A huge South Korean LNG tanker was moving through the area, throwing off a radar return big enough to hide behind. The navigator had been tracking it for the past hour. If the submarine came up on the exact line between that tanker and Dina, the mast could disappear inside the merchant ship's radar clutter. To the Iranian operator, it would look like noise. Just another bad return. At 4:48 a.m., the geometry finally worked. The order came to rise. The submarine climbed toward periscope depth. Inside the boat, everyone knew those next few seconds mattered. The mast broke the surface. The link came up. The message was received. Authorization confirmed. And just as quickly, the submarine dropped back down under the layer, and disappeared again. Now, there was no reason to wait. The solution was good enough. The target was still outside sanctuary. And the captain made the call. At 4:53 a.m., Tube 1 was readied with a Mark 48 ADCAP torpedo. Then came the part every submariner hates most. The launch. Flooding a torpedo tube is not quiet. In the underwater world, it is the kind of sound a trained sonar operator notices immediately. If Dina caught it clearly enough, everything could speed up all at once. But the Americans were betting on the ocean. On the layer. On the merchant traffic. On the noise of a crowded sea lane, masking the one sound they could not afford to repeat. Then, the torpedo left the tube. A Mark 48 ADCAP is a heavyweight weapon built for exactly this kind of kill, fast, wire-guided, and designed to break warships from underneath. At first, it still needed help. The submarine guided it by wire, feeding in corrections while Dina kept maneuvering ahead. That wire mattered. Because Dina was still turning. Still trying to throw off the solution. Every course change forced another adjustment, every correction had to be right. 5 miles. Another turn. The fire control team corrected. 4 miles. The water depth and the seabed started tightening the weapons options. 3 miles. Another sonar ping rolled through the water. 2 miles. The torpedo slowed enough for its own seeker to start doing the work. And that was when the balance shifted. Now, the weapon could hear the target for itself. The seeker went active. And Dina lit up almost instantly. A ship that size, moving at that speed, was not going to hide at this range. Terminal homing began. And now, Dina heard it too. Not some vague sound in the distance. An inbound torpedo. Closing fast. That is the moment every sailor fears, because by the time you hear it clearly, your options are already disappearing. The crew aboard Dina had only seconds. Seconds to understand what they were hearing. Seconds to launch decoys. Seconds to turn the ship. Seconds to survive something designed to leave almost no time at all. And even if countermeasures hit the water, the Americans still had one last edge. The wire. As long as it held, the fire control team could keep the torpedo focused on the real target. That was why the submarine stayed steady. That was why it accepted the risk. That was why the weapon came in exactly the way it did. The Mark 48 did not need to hit the side of the ship. It passed beneath the keel. Then, it detonated under the hull. That is how a modern torpedo kills a warship. The blast created a huge gas bubble beneath the center of the ship. That bubble expanded, lifted the hull, then collapsed. For one violent instant, the structure of the frigate was carrying stress it was never built to survive. The keel failed. The ship broke. And once that happened, it was over. Dina folded, and started to go down fast. The distress call came minutes later. By the time rescue boats reached the area, the fight was finished. The water was covered with debris, fuel, and survivors drifting in the dark. And below it all, the American submarine was already gone. Back under the thermocline. No mast. No signal. No trace. Just dark water above, reactor hum below, and silence where the attack had come from. This was not about brute force. It was about patience, timing, discipline. A crew staying calm while the window kept getting smaller. They beat a maneuvering target. They beat the clock. And when the moment came, they put a Mark 48 exactly where it would do the most damage. That is what makes submarine warfare so terrifying. You usually do not see it happen. You realize it only after it is already too late. The ocean looked empty that morning. It wasn't.